Yeah, well, we are all gods. We have been enslaved by this belief in these false and fake religions. And just to finish, as to the why 666, no particular reason, except that the book 666, which, by the way, hasn't been published yet because there is currently some dispute going on about the legal ramifications. But to be perfectly honest, such a book cannot be published by an English publisher because it is so controversial. I mean, if it was to be published, there would be a revolution tomorrow, basically.
Yeah. Well,
but just to finish, the reason it's titled 666 is because it has 10 chapters, and each of the chapters is precisely 666 kilobytes.
okay. Was that by design or
By accident.
by accident? Okay. Yeah, no, I understand that when the Emperor Constantine created Roman Catholic Christianity, they started a long period of suppressing all other ancient bodies of knowledge in Western civilization. And I take it your group was trying to keep that knowledge from being extinguished. Is that a short version of what's been happening?
That is pretty much correct. We have preserved this esoteric knowledge, which goes back to the time of Atlantis. And we can prove this. And when this proof comes out, it will become blatantly obvious that the Earth wasn't created in 4004 BC by some almighty God.
Well,
And that the whole thing is a great big fraud and a fake just to enslave the human race.
well, certainly in Asia, where they don't have people, following a book telling them how to live, this is not an alien way of thinking. But I want to get back to this organization and the seeming power it has, because another thing you did that made me realize you're not just some guy, some flake, is that you went to the Japanese police before the tsunami attack on March 11th, 2011, and you told them that Japan was about to be hit with nuclear terrorism. Why did you do that? What was the source of your information?
Well, because this 70 kilograms of marijuana that you keep bringing up, I was introduced, you see, through a colleague that I used to work with, to another group who was based in Thailand. And I went to meet these people. They seemed nice enough. I found out, I mean, you have to understand, in this business, I mean, these are heavy-duty, hardcore people, usually ex-military, SAS of the sort, with intelligence connections. And that's how they do this stuff, because they have connections. You can't, an ordinary person off the street couldn't do this kind of work.
Yeah.
But anyway, when this so-called opportunity was presented to me, and that's how you became involved, I went to meet these people. They seemed nice enough, and they took me blindfolded in a car, standard procedure, to the place where they were keeping this stuff, the 70 kilograms of stuff. And I still can't understand, to be perfectly honest, why all this happened. But while I was there, I saw a cruise missile. And these people told me that this was one of the cruise missiles that was taken from the Russian submarine Kursk. Now, agreed, this could all have been some kind of elaborate...
However, I will point out that a couple years before I met you, Mr. Paul Lane from Pentagon Military Intelligence told me that 4 nuclear-tipped warheads were stolen from the Russian submarine Kursk. So I can confirm from an independent source what you just told me.
That is also my information. I saw this thing with my own eyes. And what I did was I reported the incident and the general area. I didn't know the exact area, but I knew the general area. To the Japanese police. I tried to tell as many people as I could, including yourself. I believe you reported in the news. And I also went to the Australian embassy in Tokyo. And I thought this information was very important. And so I passed it to the Australian embassy, asked that it be given to the Prime Minister, Mr. Kevin Rudd, and I promptly left the country because I didn't think it was safe for me to be here. 2 days after this incident, where I gave this information to the Australian embassy, the Prime Minister was inexplicably fired.
And when you told me that the nuclear missile had been smuggled into a property owned by former Prime Minister Yasuhiro Nakasone in western Tokyo, we traced it to the basement. It was then transported to the basement of the North Korean Citizens Association in Japan, and it was then transferred to the deep sea drilling ship, the Chikyu Maru, which was drilling it can drill 10 kilometers into the seabed, and it was drilling off the shore of Japan before the tsunami. And we have one of the one of the crew members who was involved in placing the nuclear weapons on the seafloor in our protective custody, and he has given us a full explanation of what's happened. Now, let's not go back to 311 too much, because that's already over. Rather, you're now telling me that the next target for nuclear terrorism is going to be London, and I'd like to know why you're saying that.
Well, on just that you mentioned 311 on March 11th, 2 hitmen were sent to kill me on that date. At that time, I was in the Philippines. 2 assassins. I was warned, of course, I escaped, but they planned to kill me on exactly the same date. Now, I have...
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you something, too. Just on March 10th, the day before, the daughter of the former number 2 man in the Yamaguchi Gumi crime syndicate insisted that I go meet this person who tried to poison me. And I think it was designed so that I would also die on 311. But that's another story. Except that, yeah, I'm just a journalist who followed the investigative trail until I discovered some very dangerous people and entered into that nexus of secret societies, government spy agencies, mafias and gangsters, and you learn about this whole world of murder and violence and secrecy, and you get involved, and it's hard to get out,
It's impossible to get out. The thing is that I actually know the name of the person who was involved in this smuggling operation. And it's a MI6 agent who's living in the Philippines. Peter Stevens is his name. He was the ex chief of
superintendent, I think, of the Hong Kong police.
And when Hong Kong reverted back to China, he moved to the Philippines, and from there continued his spying operation.
Okay, now
I have reported this to MI6 as well as to other.
Okay, but what we're trying to do now is to prevent the murder of innocent people in London or wherever they're going to set off their next weapon.
That is obviously their plan. I mean, all the signs point to it. And anyone who knows anything about these things, it's plain and obvious. They present it in movies, in cards. The attack is going to take place against London during the Olympics. No one wants to do anything about it.
Yeah, and on the Rockefeller Institute homepage, there's a document which written in past tense, talking about how London was attacked by terrorism in 2012, and 13,000 people were killed.
There are many of these signs, not just one. But yes, I've seen this document as well.
So now we both are part of organizations that are dedicated to overthrowing these criminals, and I think we have a rough agreement on who they are, but who do you think is it we have to remove from power in order to prevent this kind of war and mass murder?
Well, it's the group known as the Old World Order, the roughly 6,000 individuals, mostly old men, average age 60, but even within that, there's, as you say, the Committee of 300, and these people have ruled our planet for forever, and it's time we got rid of them, but unfortunately they don't want to go. So what we are going to do, as I mentioned the last time, is we are offering a $1 million bounty in gold for the public execution of a mass murderer and war criminal. Actually, that applies to all of them, but we're going to start with George W. Bush Jr.
Okay, so you're saying that there's $1 million gold bounty on George Bush Jr.'s head?
Yes.
Okay, now this is not White Dragon Society policy. This is Gnostic Illuminati. What the White Dragon Society is proposing is to start multiple legal cases against the pharmaceutical and chemical companies that are putting spreading disease and putting sterilizing chemicals in ordinary household products as a part of an illegal campaign to reduce population. Because here we have a legal way to arrest these people, and the investigative trail will lead to the Committee of 300, the Club of Rome, and to this group of old men.
Yes, but these people control the courts, and time is running out. It's 2012. I mean, if there isn't going to be a revolution this year, then it never will. So I think we have to take matters into our own hands and fight fire with fire, basically, because that is what these people do. They use violence and force on the rest of them, on the rest of us. And now it's time we turn the tables and start using it on them.
And it is true that murder in self-defense is legal.
Well, it all depends on the morality, doesn't it?
Yes, but I mean, if they're going to kill billions of people, which they've announced in multiple documents, and we have a countless amount of insiders telling us this. And in fact, I was invited to join their ranks, and they told me, I have a tape recording of it, where they're saying they have to kill 4 to 5 billion people through disease and starvation and war.
Well, we are at war. Make no mistake about that. This is a war.
Yeah, and I do believe that the Asian secret societies also need to realize that it's not just enough to stop buying their government bonds, okay? We have to remove these people from positions of power, and I advocate putting them in jail. Your group is taking a more radical stance where you're actually talking about an active assassination campaign.
Well, so long as we get the job done, it doesn't really matter how we do it. But, we can work together on this. Because the goal is the same, to remove these parasites.
And I would like to ask for the patriotic and intelligent people in the militaries of the West to take action before a more radical, anarchistic type of chaos erupts. A surgical, pinpoint series of arrests is all that would take to prevent billions of deaths. We know who they are. We know where they are. Why aren't they in jail?
Do you have any other questions?
Yes. Why do you call yourself Alexander Romanov?
Because I am.
You claim to be the heir to the Russian throne, is that right?
I'm the oldest grandson of Anastasia Romanov. Great-grandson of Tsar Nicholas Romanov, which would make me, unfortunately I'm not, Mr. Putin is the Tsar of Russia at the moment, but it would make me the rightful heir to the Russian throne, yes.
Okay. And when you first came to me, you said you were a KGB MI6 agent.
I did nothing of the sort.
Well, you did drop those names.
Keep making things
All right. Well, maybe you're not supposed to say this in public. I don't know, but
I'm not a KGB agent.
Although
I do have connections to pretty much every intelligence agency on Earth, including the KGB.
Yeah, as do I, because we got involved in this stuff.
Well, a plan to start World War III, which they are trying to put into effect this year.
Yeah, fortunately, the Russian, Chinese, and American militaries have already agreed they're not going to be fooled into all-out warfare. So the plot is already falling apart, but we need to drive in the finishing blow. We need to remove these people from power.
Let's start with making an example of George W. Bush Jr.
And I say let's start by putting the bums in jail. Thank you very much. This has been a public announcement by two of the several large revolutionary forces now trying to free humanity from the grips of a family mafia of mass murderers, bribers, and liars who have taken over the governments of most of the Western countries. And we're trying to create a world fascist totalitarian dictatorship. We want to set humanity free. Thank you.